The Whispers with Women podcast is brought to you by the 7 Unicorns Nutrition, let thy food be thy medicine, synergistic nutritional alchemy. My mission, healing the heart and health of humanity by the power of food as medicine, by alkalizing, detoxing, nourishing, and fasting. It's time to love thy temple, embody thy spirit, honor thy truth, and reclaim thy life. My 4 pillars of health protocol is extraordinary for health and longevity. My famous blends are made with the finest ingredients. No fillers, no additives, no hidden sugars, no chemical shitstorms. My gift to you. All my inspired formulas are developed, trialed, and refined over 20 years by me, a triple world champion, a professional athlete, a woman on a health mission. The 4 pillars of health protocol is simple, powerful, proven, and pure, and made and sent to you with all of the love. I offer you, my beautiful listeners, 10% off at checkout. Use the code WHISPERS. Go to amandaallen.com.au. This is Amanda Allen, and welcome to the Whispers with Women podcast, uncut, uncensored, and unapologetic conversations with the wise women of the world. And it is my utter privilege to welcome Marja West today to our conversation. And I love, there's a couple of quotes that I hear you say all the time. It's do-it-yourself spiritual awakening for divine in the flesh. I love that. Yeah. And victim to victorious. And I just love the power of all of that. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Amanda, for your invitation and for graciously having me.
Oh, likewise. It's been a struggle since I think August. We've been trying to have this conversation, so I appreciate your patience. There's so much, when I sit down to think about what I would like to ask you about, masculine and feminine, the psychopathy, integrity, trauma, the rise of the wise women, reclaiming health, embodying spirit in the flesh, honor, respect, balance, nature. I mean, it's all entwined in everything that you do.
Yes.
Where do we start with that?
Well, we can start at where we are in the sort of collective shit show of what I call the matrix, and specifically the 7 Neunzehn. I can't even say it correctly, so I use another language because then I don't get flagged anymore. But we're all being hijacked. We're all being hijacked with our attention to pay attention to divide and conquer, to pay attention to other people, and declining our ability in making our own choices and just focusing in on our lives. And so I think we can start there, because I think it's very important that we focus not on what's going on outside of ourselves, but what's going on specifically in our layer of reality, which is our lives.
Correct. What's inside of our own skin.
Exactly. And focus in on that and what we want to create for ourselves and for our families, rather than having our attention, our creative energy, our life force getting hijacked by all of the, I call it the yaya gaga zaza, because you can just topic and you can go down a very, very shitty rabbit hole, so to speak, and there's no end to it. So we have to take the decision.
Is it in our nature as humans to go down rabbit holes? Is that being used against us?
I think it is, actually, because, we're in that sort of polarity of to research or not to research. And even the process of researching has been hijacked, because with technology, the sort of, I call them the powers that want to be, that run the world. That now, I always say the world is not the planet, okay? The world is the matrix. It's the world that is being force-fed to us through mass media. Pick one, okay? The planet is our access to who and what we truly are as divine creative beings in a creative universe. Okay, so the quantum field, creation field universe is aligned with the planet. It's not aligned with the matrix in the world. Okay, the matrix in the world is run by all the sort of narratives that start telling us where we have to be, who we have to be, what we can and cannot do, when it is really our choice as sovereign beings on the planet, not within the matrix, to do what we do. So research gets hijacked. You have science and the science. It's like, oh my God, it makes me want to scream. And when I get to that point, I use that as a trigger to wake the fuck up and really see that I'm having my attention hijacked to this divide once again. And so the spiritual practice of waking yourself up and being aware and awake is a constant practice. It is not a one-off event as promulgated by what I call New Age bullshit, that once you're spiritually awakened, your life is going to be perfect. That's nonsense. You know, we have to pay attention moment to moment to moment to moment and take it from there. So I always encourage people to really pay attention to what it is that they're focusing in on. If you're focusing in on a shit show, you're going the wrong way. And to come back to center and to regroup on what's important for you. What's your focus? What do you want to, how do you want your universe to be? And to focus in on that.
It is so true, isn't it? And
Yes,
just the
concept. It's what you do.
Well, this is the thing. And for me, you know, with my own background of trauma and abuse and trying to extricate myself from early programming and narcissistic abuse, and you don't know what you don't know until I feel that the abuses and the traumas fractured me to the point where I was utterly broken, but broken open, and to start to attend to myself and to rebalance masculine and feminine.
Absolutely.
Yes, to start to see a pattern, a matrix that is controlling.
Yes, and we all have to get good with our own masculine and feminine within. And then in the matrix, what you have is you've got this gender war. We're going to divvy up all the genders. We're going to divvy up men and women. We're going to divvy up men. We're going to divvy up women. It's nonsense. And it is a way for our attention to be hijacked. It is a way to weaponize our wounds, weaponize our traumas, so that we can hate on each other and blame each other.
It's so easy, isn't it? It's so easy to stay stuck in trauma and stuck in victim. Absolutely. And stuck in a repeating narrative.
Yes. And then we get shamed and victimized for more of that, or we get shamed and blamed because I'm from California. I call it California. To be very, kind of snarky and put a little humor in it, because what I was noticing when I was there, and I've been gone from there now for going on 7 years, and I will never, ever succumb to going back there, because so much of it has been hijacked to the point where if you have worked through your traumas, that is quite often seen as a front to those still struggling. How dare you find your way out? How dare you live a full and beautiful life?
It's so interesting you say that, because recently I've been rising, I've been embodying my spirit, truly honoring myself and respecting. But with that light, I feel this imminent threat, and I feel I need to be careful how happy I am and where I am that happy energy.
Yes.
Not happy, flippant, but really deeply.
Absolutely. And that is seen as an affront by those who really want to manage the matrix in such a way, because the more of us that understand that we are grand creators, that we can actually access exiting the matrix and waltz in and out of it, doing our lives by composing our layer of reality. The more of us that do that, the matrix doesn't grow. The quantum field creation field universe grows. And so those of us who are still stuck in the matrix and identified by all this identitarianism shit, people get angry. They get very, very upset because what you're doing is you're having the audacity to activate your creations, activate and actualize your creativity, and actually do your life. And how dare you do your life? How dare you look amazing? How dare you feel good? How dare you share the love that you are and invite people to be the love that they are? And I've had that shit thrown in my face, and it's surprising. It's like, what? What happened? What are you talking about? You know, and it's not that we're leaving people behind. What we're doing is we're actually growing the our ability as a collective humanity to recognize and remember that we are grand creators, rather than adhering to the mind control programming within the matrix that allows the matrix to tell us who we are, what we can do, what we can't do, and define us and define our lives. And that's slavery. And that slavery has been going on for millennia. And, you know, I mean, even with this divide, I get all these people reaching out to me. Don't you want to join our army? We've got to fight this shit. You know, it's like, no, I don't want to join up. I'm taking arms. But that's not to say I don't like my guns, you know. It's a matter of your focus. And in my layer of reality is pretty fucking awesome.
Well, I'm loving mine too. And you're so, I just keep coming back to this. It's choices, it's attention. And what I've done trying to extricate myself from my own suicidal despair, depression, trauma, I turned to, and I had to practice in the good times, to turn to health, to turn to physical activity, to turn to motivation, to turn to the sun, to turn to Mother Nature, to turn to my wolves, to go away, to go within, you know, and to stay true. And I think the matrix, the description of the matrix, it collapses us before we persevere long enough on these things. Like, are we as humans, is our timeline too short in the way we want change to happen?
Well, I think the timeline has been hijacked because we're infinite beings, and I truly believe that anything is possible. And the reason why we don't sprout wings is that most of us don't believe we can. And so what I'm noticing around the planet, and you know, before this whole 7-9 stuff started going on, I was traveling quite a lot, and it seemed like the golden thread with most humans is that most humans do not even believe that it is possible to create your own layer of your universe. They don't believe it's possible. So they believe that whatever they're handed, by the time they're conceived, by the time they take their first breath, they receive their first breath, that it is a done deal. And they just succumb to it. And then, of course, we have been hijacked by media to focus any and all of our attention from the moment we're able to be, quote unquote, entertained, to have that entertainment run our lives completely throughout, you know, our indoctrination, our schools, and all that kind of stuff. And then you get a job, and then you retire, and you die, you know, and then you repeat, you know, it's rinse and repeat. And so for a lot of people, I'm hearing, is it really possible? It's really possible. I can make my own choices. And so just the mind control of being loyal to, say, your family, tribe, and your situations, being loyal to your trauma, being loyal to pain and suffering because your parents had pain and suffering, or your grandparents, or your lineage, or your twin sister, or whatever, to be loyal to being less than who and what you really are. And that shit is rewarded by the illusion that we are going to be taken care of by some other some other thing, whether it's government, whether it's some kind of program or mind control. And you know, it's like, it's not a juicy way to be living, that's for sure. And I think this whole thing that we're all being gaslighted about, you know, I mean, I tap into the matrix every now and again, and I you know, watch what's going on, and you just gotta make the decision. You gotta pull yourself out of it, and you have to monitor and pay attention to what it is you're paying attention to.
Oh, it's so true. It's a discipline.
Yes.
And is that lacking? Because health is a discipline. Where we direct our attention is a discipline. How we choose to live our lives is a discipline. That we become a meditation in motion, in every action, in every moment, every day is a discipline. And I think that's where we exit the matrix, isn't it?
Yes, yes, absolutely.
Disciplines.
And make the choice. Make the choice. I mean, it's sex, money, power, food, survival. I mean, these are, you know, the 5 sort of ways that we get hijacked in our attention. And it's so confusing when you start doing the research and you're on due diligence, because so much of it on the internet is hijacked with false information, narratives from this discipline and that discipline. It's very, very challenging to pick something that is actually going to work. And what I hear is people just get frustrated, which is why it's so important, especially in, say, your work, particularly in the category of health, well-being, body, mind, heart, mind, body, soul coordination, nutrition, food, live food, exercise. What you're doing is it's a tremendous service, because we are not meant as human beings in the matrix or outside the matrix to schlunk in front of a television or computer screen and not move the body. And I'm very fortunate. I'm in my 60s, and I have been physically active since I was a very small girl. I started out as a ballerina, so I have always moved my body. And I have taught martial arts and yoga and dance. And it's important to move the body, because if we don't move the body, there is no way you can conduct creative life force energy, let alone materialize your creative life force energy. Whatever it is that you're passionate about. You know, passion can't move if the body isn't moving.
It's so true. You know, where there is stagnation, there is death. That
Absolutely. Absolutely. And most people have given up, you know, and we live in such a convenient society. You know, we don't want to cook. I love cooking. There's favorite things to do, and making my own food. I'm not much of going out. And of course, you know, when 7/19 hit, I'm not really doing anything all that much different, other than not traveling. But, you know, I don't go to restaurants. I like to make my own food. I like fresh ingredients. I love all that kind of stuff. And most people, you know, they want to package. They get upset with the shrink wrap because they can't open it fast enough, because they're starved of nutrition, to stick it in the microwave, which is going to kill their food even more. And, you know, it's like, whatever. But anyways, I digress, because it is a minefield to navigate what works. But that's part of getting to know yourself as well.
Is this a maturing of humanity? Is this a dark night of the soul in the pit of despair, retrieving ourselves from a destructive adolescence?
I feel like that. It is, yes. Because I feel like we're moving into this collective of what I call the sort of mature soul perceptivity, where we're like, we've had this round of so much wealth and prosperity for the elite few, right? And then there's the collective of the struggle. And it feels like, for me, when I waltz in and out of the matrix, that there is this very rude awakening of, folks really being frustrated about, well, how come there is such a sort of polarity between the haves and the have-nots, okay? But that in and of itself is also a program, because what I'm noticing is that the more people are waking up, the more they're actually discovering their true nature and the incredible power that they wield as a grand creator, that they can actually bypass all of the disparity and the polarities of haves and have-nots, and actually be able to create a pretty great layer of reality for themselves. But once again, it's really coming to the belief that you can actually do it. But if you don't think it's possible, you're not even going to take the time to journal about what it is that you want to have in your layer of reality, what it is that you want to create in your life. And, because one of the things that I've discovered throughout my life is that we have a creation field that surrounds each and every one of us, that taps actually into the unlimited abundance of the true quantum field creation field universe, that requires us to be awake and exit the matrix so that we can plug our creation fields into this true quantum field creation field universe and bypass the chain of events. Because we're trained from get-go that if you want this, you've got to do this and this and this so that this can happen, blah 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 blah, and we're supposed to control the chain of events. That's what the matrix tells you.
And it tells us 3 kids, mortgage,
yes,
two cars,
exactly.
School.
Exactly. Yeah. By the time you're 25, and if after you're over 25, you are not the shit. You have failed in your life, and it is just like, yikes. Yeah.
I'm interested in, like, what does the human do? And I know we're all in it. All of us have been programmed, traumatized, abused, stolen from ourselves. And look, to me, everywhere I look, whether it's in the water, in the skies, in media, like at every single turn, we are poisoned mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually. And we're left with what's left at the end of it. And after these last 2 years of quite worldwide trauma, collective trauma, there is such exhaustion, there is such despair, there is such confusion about what has integrity. Where the fuck do I turn now, today, in this next moment, in this next hour? I can't save the world. I can barely save myself. What the fuck do I do?
So what I say to that, and this is what I'm doing. And
actually, let me just tell you what I've done, which is basically, I got small. I got so small. I've gotten rid of every worldly possession I don't need. I don't go into the world. I don't go to shops. I don't want your fucking coffee at $6 or $7 a pop. I go to nature. I go with my animals. I go to the ocean. I go to the water. I go with gratitude in my heart, and I need so little. I don't, what do you say? What do you do?
Yeah, so I do something very, very similar. I live a very simplified life. I know what I love to do. My work, my writing, I'm very focused in on that. I live in the high desert mountains at 7,000 feet in the southwest of America.
Beautiful.
And, right before 7/19 hit, I was living either in London or I was living in Italy, very much out in the world, promoting my work, doing my, and then shit hits the fan, and it's like it was a godsend, because what ended up happening is that it allowed me to just like really focus in on what is important to me, and what is important to me is my well-being, my relationship with nature and the planet, not the world. I don't want to be in the fucking world. I hated London. I hated London. I hated the noise. I hated the filth. I hated having to interact with zombies, basically. And that is the whole thing with the Matrix, is that I realized that much of my interaction with the world, with the Matrix, okay, is that there wasn't a match for me. And I noticed that people would like look at me and regard me like, what are you? But you're alive and you have passion for what it is that you do. These I call them mannequins. They notice something is weird, especially when you actually engage. Like I remember being in a shop and I was very, very, very tired. And when I'm tired, I always go the extra mile because I want to with my passion. So I really did. And I engaged the shop owner, and she was just like, when I first came in, it was like she noticed me. And when I asked her a question, she was literally startled that I spoke to her. And but what was amazing about that is that she came to life and was talking about how people would come in and her shop and not even engage her and act like she wasn't even there. And so this is what I'm talking about. It's like the engagement. It's our choice to engage. And you know, when you think about the world and the Matrix and the planet and the quantum field creation field universe, there isn't much difference. What is it that is waltzing in and out of the Matrix is our attention, our consciousness. We still have to interact. You know, I mean, I have to go to a shop every now and again to buy groceries, to do what I have to do. And I interact and I do it the best that I can. But what I've done is I've pared down my reality where I'm focused in on my creativity, my work, my writing, my clients, my students. I have a relationship for the first time in a decade. And that's amazing. That's amazing. And, you know, so there's this co-creation of my layer of reality that is very collaborative. You know, I live where I live, and then we have the internet. So one of the things that I learned to do is not push up against some of the tools like technology. You know, people go, oh, technology is so bad. Social media is so bad. Well, but you have to be able to hop onto the momentum of social media, the pendulum of social media, because it is a requirement in order to interact with other people like yourself who are out in the world. And this is part of our connection. Not all of it is bad. We have to make the choice to utilize it as a positive tool.
So true. It's medicine or it's poison. It's just a matter of dose, isn't it? Attention.
Yeah. Is it toxic? Is it toxicity, or is it medicine? You know, is it toxic or tonic? You know, what is it? Is it poison or is it medicine? It's the same thing. And we have to make that choice. And that choice can only be made if we own our attention. If the Matrix and its shit shows own your attention, you're kind of fucked, because then you're adhering to the automated script or the narrative that's being pounded by the Matrix, telling you it's all awful, it's gone to hell in a handbasket. So I don't pay attention to that. I don't listen to the news. I don't do any of that. I'm focusing on my thing. I'm focused in on, you know, my clients and students. I have clients and students in over 30 countries, and we just do what we do. And we're all learning how to activate our true creative natures to create our own layer of reality. You know, and then people get down. Well, that's awfully selfish. Well, you know what? What I've done is I've learned the hard way in my, you know, going on 35 years of doing what I'm doing, where I felt it was my moral obligation to save the world, to save people from this. and you know what happens with that is that you create what I call excess potentials and balancing forces that will come wreck your shit because you don't allow people to be different from you. And so this is, once again, coming back to where is your attention focus? And, you know, this is the deal. We have to decide. It's either, you know, you put your oxygen mask on yourself first before you endeavor to be of service. And if I don't own my attention, there is no way that I'm going to be able to sit for a trauma deactivation healing session and be effective. If I'm stuck in the matrix, it's not possible for me to be an effective facilitator. You know, my attention is hijacked and I'm no good. I'm not going to be of service.
I completely relate. This last 2 years, and we've all followed and all been immersed in, and I've had to extricate myself many times over from diving too deep and traumatizing myself with the information that is available. Now, I am a deep diver. I do rabbit holes and I do extricate myself. It does cost me sometimes. It can be quite destructive, and you know, to the point now where I don't want to feel that nauseating despair and have to retrieve myself again, for God's sake. I don't want that. I need to know, like, I just tap in each day. I give myself a 10-minute window to tap into the goings on in the world, to stay on top of it. And then I retrieve myself from that and I focus everything on, as you say, that precious creative force within me, and I channel it to health and good and service.
Beautiful, because what you're doing is you are not giving your life force.
Oh, you're just breaking up a tiny bit.
You are not, what I was saying is that you are not feeding the matrix by giving it your attention.
I feel it's a beast. It is literally an energetic beast that
it really is.
It's blanketed the planet, our universe, and it feeds on our fear. It feeds on our despair.
Yes, it needs that. It needs you. It needs us to be afraid. It needs us to be in despair. It needs us to hate on each other. It needs us to. It needs us to own our attention. And the more of our attention that it owns, it gets to sit back.
It's a currency, isn't it? It is a
really
potent currency.
Yes, yes. And, you know, most people are just they're too sound asleep to even realize what it is that they're doing. Yeah. And so and the more that we focus on what layer of reality we can compose for ourselves, like for me, when I tap into the shit shows and I start feeling myself going unconscious, I use that as a trigger to once again wake myself up, see reality, exit the matrix, enter into my awareness, attention, awakened state, and I compose the layer of reality that I want. So where my layer of reality, I don't have people yelling at me because I'm not wearing a mask. You know, I don't have people, getting in my face. I have very little drama in my life other than, my own drama, because I'm either in judgment of myself or, having a hissy fit because I didn't get my way. And in which case, I always tell people that, when shit doesn't go your way, always seek the advantage. Even in a shit show, there's a reason. There's a reason why there's a delay. There's a reason why there's not instant materialization or manifestation. Okay. There's a gap, and that gap allows us to make the little tweaks, the little adjustments in our attitude, whatever it is, and to go from there. And it's a very gentle way, I think, of navigating the ins and outs of waltzing in and out of the matrix, because we don't live in a bubble.
No,
Yeah. Yeah, I know. Sometimes I wish we did, you know. And
I live in my own field of grace. I create my own field of grace around me, and I call that my bubble, but it is my field of grace.
yes.
And what do I want to put into that field of grace? And you know what? I know my body is that barometer. When I go tense, when I feel tension, gut gnawing, jaw, confusion, almost like that cognitive dissonance in my frontal lobe, that's a trigger for me too.
Yes.
And I go back to what I know, and I think this is what's so difficult for people is they've allowed the disciplines to slip, so they don't have those nourishing practices that lift them out of pits of despair. And now we're all in this collective pit of despair, and many people without the discipline, which I guess is like the paddle, you know.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
You know, what do they start with?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that the start, I had a conversation with a homeless person not that long ago, which I found fascinating because this person it was in a parking lot, a car park, and I was walking toward, you know, doing my business, and this person struck up a conversation with me and was actually very surprised that I didn't shoot him away. But it's like, why would I do that? You know, I wouldn't do that unless I felt I was in danger. And I didn't feel like I was in danger. I mean, this person had these luminous, light-filled eyes and was like just wanting to chat a little bit about the ease of his surviving. That, you know, it just was such a beautiful morning, and in this state of grace and appreciation of his life, that his life, even though he was on the streets, the weather had been kind, and that there are these beautiful programs that he's able to access. And I mean, it was just such a fascinating conversation.
Wow.
And he said something that really struck me about survival. And he just said, I never really put too much credence in my not surviving because I notice everything always works out for me. And so for a homeless person to tell me this, and then he saw somebody that he knew apparently, and then, you know, off his attention went, and you know, I felt like our conversation wasn't finished, but you know, so he veered off away and greeted the person that he knew. But what happened was I had one of those mornings, and you probably have had one of those mornings where everything is just so fucking irritating. You know, and I started it out, and when I don't start out my day with my spiritual practice of like really tuning in to the sounds that are surrounding me outside of my home, it tends to, I tend to get very, very distracted. And at that point, I had gotten distracted with a phone call that came in, and I knew I didn't want to pick it up. And yet, something held me to pick up the phone. It was a friend, and it was such a downer conversation. Everything was, and this is a woman who's married to a billionaire, basically.
Yeah.
And I got off the phone with her. I cut her off. I got off the phone with her, and I was pissed. I was just like, you know, and proceeded to go about my morning. And I had an errand to do. And this homeless man, just set my straight.
The universe.
And so, I mean, who am I to have judgment on my friend who's married to a billionaire, where she experiences all this lack, and the lack just spills out of her verbiage, and how interesting it was for me to be
I'm not sure if you can hear me, but I've lost you. You've just dropped out. Hello, gotcha. Yep, gotcha. Yes,
Okay.
you were just saying about how it's filled out. And
Yeah, so it just filled out.
Yes.
I have this awareness of my judgment, that I have this expectation that if people are well off, they shouldn't bitch about anything. And then I realized, well, wait a minute here. You know, we all have our layers of reality. And so I rang her up. I went back to my car and rang her up, and I apologized profusely for my lack of attention and my lack of care. I told her what had happened, and she burst into tears because she'd made the decision that she was going to leave.
Yeah.
And, you know, and prenuptial agreements and all that kind of stuff. She was going to leave with nothing, basically. And, you know, endeavoring to find her way in her late 50s and knowing that if she leaves, she comes off with nothing. And of course, I don't know any of these details. So I can see how survival is relative to all our experiences and you know, what it is that we're having to face. And so I was humbled. I was humbled by a homeless man being in judgment to my friend that I've known for years, married to her billionaire husband, whom she wants to leave. So it's like, that's very, very, very interesting. So, yeah.
What a beautiful scenario to describe and to elucidate.
Yeah. Yeah,
I completely relate. And I love that, you know, his attention was so much on the positive. And on his gratitude, and it really doesn't matter what's in the bank, does it?
No, it doesn't. It does. Some of the most unhappy people that I know have more money than they know what to do with, and nothing is enough. It's not enough. You can't shop enough. You can't buy enough land. You can't, you know, buy fancy food and buy all this expensive stuff to fill the void when you are disconnected from your true nature.
It is so, so true. And do you know, I've found that more than ever, and I've never had massive wealth, but the way I've gone to nature, the way nature has, synchronicity has brought me to a paradise on earth, and it's called me to it deeper and deeper and deeper. And I spend my life, and I do feel that I've lost a lot, but I'm so grateful and appreciative to have allowed that to be slothed away painfully and then more gently.
Yes.
But I am lifted up. The less I have, the more I feel connected and alive and supported and nourished by Mother Earth, by the sounds, like you say, the mornings, to listen to the birds and the winds, and that's all free.
Yes.
The smaller I get and the more I journey toward my own healing or along that journey, the less I need and the more fulfilled I am. And it's perplexing to look back, I guess, to that programming, that old matrix that I was so enmeshed in, and in a depression and suicidal depression, because I could never work it out. And I feel that many people who suffer depression or, you know, bipolar or, you know, those highly sensitives are the ones that are awakening now, that are finding their way now in a world that is so chaotic and so traumatized and so lost.
Yes.
But we seem to be the ones rising, to the ones finding our way, the ones leading the light.
Yes. Yes. And this is a good thing, because, you know, there's the individual, there's our own layers of reality, and then we're creating a collective in the true quantum field, creation field universe. We're repopulating it by exiting the matrix, and thus it grows. The quantum field, creation field universe is growing, and I love that. I love that so much. And so, you know, that the reminders for appreciation, the reminder of you know, really tuning into what is important for you to allow yourself to be what you are, who you are, and allowing others to be different from you. And it's so freeing